and welcome back to Pokemon Team Creation Series. Today's Pokemon Team Creation Series request comes to us from Parker Smith, who asked the question, what is Perry the Platypus's from Phineas and Ferb's Pokemon team? I've already done a Zonpokto Creation Series video with Perry the Platypus, and I have been open about the fact that I didn't watch Phineas and Ferb, never really watched any of it. I've seen bits of it in passing. I'm aware of it in the zeitgeist, and I'm very aware of Perry the Platypus. But I have never actually watched Phineas and Ferb. So with that said, I did have to obviously go again online into the wiki forum of stuff that I knew needed to find out about the character. I think I did okay with the team I have created here, but there are things I look at that I go, I could have done different, sure. But let's get on with it. And right out the gate, we should address, there is no Platypus Pokemon. People have been asking for it for years. You look at Temtem, which is a Pokemon spin-off game, not even spin-off, knockoff game, Pokemon clone, let's call it. And one of the stars you can get is a Platypus. There have been fan-made regions, particularly when you look at like the Australian fan-made regions, which I hope that might be. There are rumors that might be the next region for Generation 10, based on some hints in the game. I would be so down for an Australian-based region. Are you kidding me? That'd be awesome. But I digress. When people do that, they usually make a Platypus Pokemon for their fan-made region. Or either as a starter or as just in the region, because we don't have a Platypus Pokemon yet. So, yeah, I knew I couldn't do anything with that. So I had to actually look at the character. And at the character, we have actually quite a couple things. One, he works for Orca, which is essentially a secret agency for animals that are used for spy work. And Perry the Platypus is a famous spy, at least not famous, but he's a secret agent. He, does his job and he does it well. So what about that translated? Well, I thought about it for a little bit. I'm like, okay, let's start with the basics. What would be a good Pokemon for a spy to have? Now, my first thought was again to go with Inteleon because he's based off of James Bond and the Spy. But I actually didn't think that would fit well for Perry. Yeah, he is a spy, but he's not a secret agent in the same sense as a James Bond. He's a kind of like a excuse me. He's kind of like a sleeper agent, except that you don't activate him. He just, gets his code and he does his thing. Otherwise, he just lives his life. So I'm like, okay, if I were a secret agent, what kind of Pokemon would work for me? And I thought about it, and I went first off and foremost with a Rotom. A Rotom would actually be a really good Pokemon for a secret agent because it would be great for hacking. Pokemon, it's a living ghost electrical being that can hack and possess technology. So this actually would make a lot of sense for a spy to have on their team. Add on the fact that they can change forms. It can take the possess household appliances, which is where those forms come from. This would actually be kind of like the secret weapon mon on his team when he's at his home in disguise. Because it could just take the form of different, Rotom forms to guard the house. So I like this idea that he would carry this mon on him whenever he needs to. Side note, I had a horde encounter yesterday with Rotoms, and I was talking to my buddy at work who has the game, and he says, yeah, with these horde encounters or not horde, but mass outbreak encounters, usually like 10 to 15. There was like 30 Rotoms I was going through. I don't know, it's because they were all small and could easily just appear and disappear. I don't know. Anyway, just pointing out the fact. One of the other things, though, that really stood out to me is that it is described that he very much loves and cares about the family who adopted him, and he will do everything to keep them safe. So there's a maternal, paternal, protective instinct for this character. So when I heard that, I'm like, okay, what can I use with that? And right out the gate, Kangaskhan came to mind. It's basically it's not the maternal Pokemon. I don't think that's its title. That is actually a good question. What is Kangaskhan's designation in the Pokedex? I've never actually looked at it. Kangaskhan. Let's see here. Kangaskhan is Kangaskhan, the parent Pokemon. Close enough. It's not a parent, obviously. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but the fact is, I like how someone put it like some memes like, hey, it's born with a baby in its pouch. Where does that come from? But the theoretical idea was this was actually supposed to be the final evolution in the Cubone line, and there's definitely some evidence to go along with that idea. But regardless, Kangaskhan is so it's a solid Pokemon stat-wise, if I'm not mistaken. What is its base stat total again? Base stat total for a Kangaskhan is there's give me the Kangaskhan base stat total here. They're strong Pokemon. They're not like legendary Pokemon or anything like that, but they have a base stat total well over 400. I don't think it goes into the 500 range though. Let's see here. Their base stat total is a total 490. So they are actually, and then when they Mega Evolve, it's near pseudo legendary stat, like 590. So actually, yeah, they got pretty solid stat line. A 490 stat line is pretty solid. And they're pretty balanced overall. They just lack on special attack. But they're beyond the special attack, which is 40. They got a solid HP at 105, decent attack at 95. Their lowest stat is 80, which isn't amazing, but it's far from the worst. Hell, their speed is 90. They're deceptively fast for their size. At 7'3", 100 some odd. What is it, like a couple hundred pounds? 220 pounds. I mean, hell, I weigh almost the same amount as a Kangaskhan. But they're about a foot taller than me. Anyway, I digress. So Kangaskhan made sense. Then I started to go into more of his style of it. He's known for his disguises. He just is disguised as the dumb animal Perry when he's with them, but he can also take on other disguises while he, is in the field. So what about a disguise Mon who just wants love from his family? Well, how about the Mon that actually has disguise as its ability? And that is Mimikyu. Mimikyu just wants to be loved. Unfortunately, in Mimikyu's case, you can't gaze at Mimikyu without dying because its form is so horrifying. But that said, it's still still not a bad one to go with, I think. I think it's actually pretty makes sense. Again, he puts on the disguise to be loved, whereas Perry puts on the disguise to protect and defend and defeat the enemy. Still, they both work out, I think, in a decent margin. Both are pretending to be things they're not to get ultimately what they want out of the scenario. And then I went on with more. Then I went more into his personality as a whole. And one of the big things is that Perry is actually a lover of music and actually even play instruments. So I knew a musical loving Pokemon had to be on the team. The question is, though, which Mon do you put on there? You put on a Pokemon that can learn to sing. Jigglypuff, Lapras is known to sing. Ultimately, though, I went with one that is actually kind of a singer, and that is Meloetta. It literally has a music chords, sheet of music as its hair. It's Meloetta is its designation, by the way. Is it known as the singing Pokemon? 1 second here. Meloetta. Meloetta is known as the melody Pokemon. Still, it's probably the best I could have done. I could have done Rillaboom with the drums, but of all the instruments that Perry is known to play, drums apparently aren't one of them. At least from what I can find. He can play a bass guitar really well, but he can't play the drums. Beyond that, though, I could have theoretically gone with Toxtricity, but it's more just designed off a punk rocker and can learn some sound-based moves. It's not really a musically inclined Pokemon. So it had to have been something that could learn, say, a sing-type move, like a Parish Song, Sing. I know there's a couple other Torch Song technically could have counted because that is song, but I wasn't going to put Skeleturge on this team. But Meloetta made the most sense. It is like almost living music. Then there's the idea of some of the equipment he carries with him. For instance, a glider. Well, so I'm like, I like the idea of a glider. Well, Pokemon can act like a glider. And luckily, we actually have pretty much a very good Mon for that in Mantine. Now, it's more of a kite Pokemon. In fact, Mantike is closer to a kite than Mantike is closer to a kite than Mantine is. But technically, just because of the name. Actually, it is the kite Pokemon, though. It is a kite. It is a water flying, and it can just fly up in the air and glide. Despite weighing 485 pounds, it's actually got a height of 6'11", and probably its wingspan is more likely double that. So it's a pretty sizable Pokemon. I've never used a Mantike. It evolves from Mantike, obviously. But I do like the design of a Mantine. Mantine's design is really nice. I've always liked it, actually. It's just been one of those Pokemon that exists, you know? I've never had it. I've never really used one, but now I say it out loud, I kind of want to at some point just to try it out. Let me see what its base stats are, how good of a mon it is in battle, just from its base stat. Moves or guys. 465. I've used weaker. I got a Smeargle on one of my teams in Sun and Moon right now. When I was replaying Sun and Moon, so I got no problem using Mon that have pretty low base stat totals. I mean, within reason. Smeargle's got a great ability with or gimmick with the sketch, so it can learn just about anything. But no, I had no problem with using a Mon with like 465. Hell, I've loved using Absol before multiple times, and that thing's got, I think, even lower. I think it's like only 4. I think that might be like a 450 or something. So anyway, yeah, Mantine though made a lot of sense because it's it's a living kite, so he can just use it as a glider and just glide away to safety if he needs to. Last but not least, though, he is a trained combatant. He has training, and he is a fighter, so I knew I needed a fighting type Pokemon on the team. But that became very tricky. I'm like, okay, he's not like a master martial arts, but he's a skilled hand-to-hand fighter. He's good at improvising. What do I use as a Mon to represent that? And I kept racking my brain around. I want something at least somewhat Platypus looking. There isn't a Platypus Pokemon, but there are bird-type Mon out there that have like duckbills and stuff like that. I needed something that or I could have gone a Bidoof Barrel scenario. Did not want to, but I could have. So I ultimately just was thinking, I'm like, okay, what can I use? And that ultimately came down to, you know what? Fighting type bird-esque Mon. Let's go with Surfetch. Let's go with the Surfetch line. With Surfetch. And when you really break it down, I mean, that face, it's not like 1-to-1, but it's not 1-to-10. It's definitely similar. It's a fighting type. It evolves from a lesser Pokemon, Farfetch, who has to struggle to evolve in general. It is more than capable fighter, using its leak as a sword. It has a shield. It's a pretty powerful Pokemon in its own right, but not a Mon that is so powerful that it cannot be beat. Just like Perry is not infallible. So I like and it's the whole like chivalrous knight kind of motif, and Perry is a very chivalrous character. So I liked this whole concept for Perry the Platypus for his team. So to recap, we have a Rotom, we have a Kangaskhan, we have a Surfetch, we have a Mimikyu, we have a Mantine, and we have a Meloetta, which I believe, just to get Meloetta's typing up here, is a normal psychic, and its alternate form can be a normal fighting type, which can lend itself to the fighting type even more. Let's see here. Meloetta is a... Hold on a second here. Yeah, a normal psychic type that can turn into a normal fighting type. This is actually probably one of the most balanced teams I have made in recent time. You do have a repeat of 2 normal types, and you have a repeat of 2 ghost types. But the thing is, but Kangaskhan is not. I believe it's a normal ground, if I'm not mistaken. Kangaskhan. Hold on, I didn't actually double check the typing on that. It's just a normal type. Good to know. But the thing is, you only have 1 repeat of the typing. Let me rephrase that sentence. The type repeats twice, but only one of them is a single type, is what I'm trying to say. With the normal. The 2 ghost types are both dual. So let's just break it down real quick. We have 2 normals. We have 1 psychic, 1 fairy, 2 ghost, 1 electric, 1 fighting, and then 1 water and 1 flying type. All of them, except for the Kangaskhan, are dual types as well. So this team, just looking at this team from the get, it's actually pretty balanced. You have a mythical Pokemon on there too. It's actually pretty balanced. I will say though, just from my immediate point of gaze, it's a team that probably could handle fighting type Pokemon well. You have a psychic type, 2 ghosts, and a flying type on there. It's perfectly adequate against both water and fire types as well, or grass types. And fire types because it's got a water type on there. But there's no, against the 3 basic types, there's no real clear-cut advantage except for the electric typing there. So water might be the one that has the easiest time with. It's perfectly resistant to grass types. It's perfectly resistant to fire types. Bug types don't seem to be a big problem. Although fighting's not very strong against bug, you've still got a flying type on there to really counteract any bug types that come into the fray. Ground is strong against Rotom, but then you got Mantine there to counteract any ground types, assuming they don't have an ability. I'm just going by type, by the way. Poison, perfect. They don't have anything overly strong against poison, save for a psychic type, but you don't really need it beyond that. You got one against electric types. You only got one mon that's times 4 weak to electric. Other than that, you're good. Ice types. Ice types are actually kind of SOL against this team. They're not. Yeah, as Mara going over this, psychic could be a little. It was only a little bit of a problem for 2 of them on the team, and then you got 2 ghost types against the psychic. Steel, resistant. Okay, looking at this, the only thing they got on this team for against Steel is Surfetch. So Steel could be a problem for this team, especially if Surfetch is already knocked out. Ghost types are somewhat of a problem, but only against maybe 3 of these guys, because Ghost is weak to Ghost. So yeah, Kangaskhan and Meloetta are immune to Ghost type moves, but still. Dark types are a bit of a problem for this team. Half the team is very weak to Dark, although the Fairy typing of Mimikyu does help mitigate some of the weakness of Dark, but they are still weak against Dark types on this team. Then you have Dragon. You got one mon that's immune to Dragon, but that's it. If Mimikyu gets taken down, they're gonna have to fight hard against some Dragon types. So yeah, this is actually, I'm trying to think if I forgot anything. I don't think I did. Against normal types, no one really cares. Normal's not really strong against anything. But yeah, flying types too. No, they're pretty fine against flying types. So yeah, this is actually one of the most balanced teams I've made. And honestly, everything's fully evolved too, and nothing is overly powered on this team. So this is not a bad team, I think. But this is just my opinion. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Until then, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And I'll see you for the box office report coming up. Later.